You're listening to ArchaeoEd, a podcast about the ancient civilizations of the Americas. I'm your host, Ed Barnhart. I've been an archaeologist, an explorer, and a seeker of esoteric knowledge all over the Americas for 30 years and counting. This podcast is just me, no guests to help me fill the airtime. Sometimes I'll teach you about the many civilizations of the Americas long before Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Other times, I'll tell stories of my adventures in the field. It's just me, freed from the podium and talking like we're just having a beer together. If that sounds good to you, then sit back, relax, and let me tell you a tale. Season 6, Episode 9, Danger in Wyoming. For this last episode of Season 6, it's story time. I'll tell you the story of how, when I was 20 years old, I was almost murdered on an Indian reservation. Now, I've been hesitant to tell this story on ArchaeoEd because everyone in it was being an idiot, including myself. It's also not about archaeology. At best, it's anthropology gone bad. I don't remember the names of the people who wanted to kill me, and that's probably for the best. I do remember the name of my girlfriend at the time, who's central to the story, but my wife and daughter say I shouldn't use her real name. If I did, I could accidentally dox her, and I don't want to do that. So, we'll call her Jane. That's not her name. Don't go looking for her. The year is 1988. I just turned 20, and I'm an undergraduate in the University of Colorado at Boulder. I'm dating Jane, a tough, rowdy hippie chick with long brown hair. She had a big motorcycle she liked to ride around town on. I was in anthropology classes. She was a photography major. She had a final project due and decided her subject would be the pride versus the sorrow of the American Indian. In retrospect, that was bad decision number one. She asked me to drive to Wyoming with her that weekend. She figures we'll find some Native Americans in Cheyenne and she can take some pictures and do some interviews. I'm in anthropology classes learning about Native Americans, so I'm game. We're totally broke, so we throw a tent and blankets into the car. It's the first week of December, so it'll be cold. Saturday morning, we drive to Cheyenne. We look around, but don't find any Native Americans. A person at a store tells us that Lander to the northwest is where more Native Americans live. So we drive almost 4 more hours to Lander, Wyoming. It's a small town with a summer tourism industry, but in December it's dead. All the Indian markets are closed. Jane is totally frustrated. It's mid-afternoon by now. We decided that we'd spend the night and hope to find some Indians that evening or in the morning. We wanted some beer, but neither of us were of age. Nevertheless, Jane drives to a liquor store and says she'll find someone to buy us some beer. Just then, an Indian man in his 30s walks into the parking lot. Jane gets out and walks right up to him. They talk for a while, she gives him some money and gets back in the car. He'll buy our beer if we buy him a bottle of whiskey and give him a ride out to his uncle's place on the reservation. Before I could even ask any other questions, he was in the back seat of our car. He had a case of beer, a handle of whiskey, and a big grin on his face. With him calling out directions, we drove into the Wind River Indian Reservation. We drive up the highway and turn right on a dirt road. About 5 miles into the countryside, we arrive to his uncle's place. It's a trailer home. We're met at the door by his uncle, an old man all smiles and hugs. There are 2 other guys there, too. Our new friend introduces us, and they warmly invite us in. Jane explains her project, and they happily pose for some photos. We learn that they're Shoshone. I start talking about what I've learned about their culture in anthropology classes. I bring up the sun ceremony, and the old man tells us all about it. He even invites me to come back and participate next June. Then the younger men start talking about their heritage. We end up walking down a dirt road to a community cemetery. The tallest guy points out all of his relatives to me and pulls out a folded piece of paper, pulls it out of his wallet. It's a document that proves he's 1/8 Shoshone. Not that I ever doubted him. The sun was going down, so we headed back to the trailer. The old man made everyone spaghetti, and we got to drinking. Our beer went fast, and we moved to the handle of whiskey. They put some music on, and we were having a good time. The old man said we could spend the night, even gave us his room, so we moved our stuff in from the car. Another of the old man's nephews showed up. He was our age and very cool. With his added help, we quickly finished off the whiskey. It was about midnight by then. A song came on that Jane really liked, and she started dancing. Then one of the men got up and started dancing with her. Another good song came on, and a second man got up to cut in and dance with her. But the first wouldn't give her up. It turned into a shoving match. Then one punches the other in the nose, and blood pours out. The old man breaks up the fight, and I pull Jane to the side. I say, "Let's get out of here. Let's go back to Lander." She says, "You're not the boss of me," and goes back into the living room. Now she starts flirting with the nephew our age, and he's very into it. I pull Jane away again and ask her to leave, or at least just go to bed. She yells, "You're too controlling," and walks back into the young nephew. She says, "Did you say you have a friend who will sell us some beer? Well, let's go get it." I follow both out to Jane's car and beg her not to leave, but she just says, "I'm done talking to you." As they drive away, I turn around and go back into the trailer. I close the door, turn around, and the old man slaps me hard across the face. With tears in his eyes and the other three standing angrily behind him, he yells, "Why did you bring that witch here? Now she has my nephew." I think, oh shit, sober up, Ed. This just got real. Okay, first commercial break here. When I return, things go from bad to worse in a hurry. Maya Exploration Center has 3 new public tours up on our website, 2 to Mexico and 1 to Guatemala. Now, I know that global instability, both financially and politically, has a lot of people nervous to travel abroad right now. But that's one of the things that distinguishes MEC trips from others. We have dynamic tour leaders guiding our groups through places where we have been community building for decades. We have friends all along all of our routes. Yes, we go to remote places, but we do it safely and competently. In August, Zach Lindsay will lead our new Petén Wars tour in Guatemala. The focus will be understanding the chaotic Maya civil war that took place in the 7th century CE. Zach is a trained epigrapher, and he'll be explaining the war-related hieroglyphic texts all along the way. Then in January 2026, Luke Caverns will lead our expedition through the Olmec world. From Villahermosa to Mexico City, he'll lead you through the major capital cities of the Olmecs and on a route that will see all 17 colossal Olmec heads. Finally, Zach will lead a repeat journey to Calakmul in February of 2026. This year's Calakmul was such a hit, we thought we'd do it again. I know you all love these topics, or you wouldn't be listening to this commercial I've embedded so deeply in this podcast episode. Why not take the next step and see it for yourself? MEC can get you there and back with some great adventure stories to tell. Check out all of our tours at www.mayaexploration.org. Clearly, this was a bad situation. I say, she's not a witch, she's just a stupid drunk girl. As soon as she gets back, we'll leave. The old man yells, "You're a fool. She's not coming back." Another man says, "You're not going anywhere. You're going to die tonight, and so is she." The tall guy goes to the kitchen and he gets a steak knife. He comes over to me and says, "We're going to slit your throat and hide your body in the mountains. No one will ever find you." He made that cut your throat motion over his neck with the steak knife. The other two guys found Jane's camera and said, "Let's sell it. No, let's just smash it." I knew it was an expensive camera and her prized possession. And being drunk and stupid, I said no. I grabbed it from them and they attacked me, punching, and then when I got on the ground in a ball, kicking me. The old man broke it up, and I kept the camera. I sat on the couch, guardedly waiting for Jane to return. A tense hour passed. No Jane and no nephew. The old man started getting angry again, saying she was a witch who came specifically to get his nephew. I got up and said, "You know what? I think I'm just going to leave on foot." But they piled up on the door and said, "No way, you're dying tonight." By then, the adrenaline had sobered me up, and I just started talking. I don't remember everything I said, but it was along the lines of, "Hey, we were friends just a few hours ago. You don't want to do this. If she's a witch, I'm a victim too. I didn't know." Finally, the old man agreed that I could leave, but he said I'd never make it to the highway. The reservation was both Shoshone and Arapaho, sworn enemies from the past. He said if I walk in front of anyone's property on a Saturday night, they'd shoot first and ask questions later. I said, "Well, I'll take my chances." I grabbed my bag, Jane's camera inside, and wrapped my blanket around me. The tall guy says, "I'll show you where the highway is if you share your blanket to my house." An hour earlier, he was waving a steak knife at me. Now, he wanted to share my blanket. But sure, let's you and me get out of here. We walked side by side for about a half mile to his house. He told me which way to go and ducked quickly into his house. It was December 5th at 2 a.m. It was freezing. The highway was still 5 miles off, but I remembered there was a convenience store at the turn. It had a payphone. The old man said everyone on the reservation used it because no one had phone lines. Remember, this was the 1980s. The only cell phone I had ever seen was used by Don Johnson in Miami Vice. So I walked, and I walked, and I walked. I was freezing, but at least the moon was out to light my way. I finally got to the highway and the store. I stumbled up to the phone and picked up the receiver. It was dead. Lander was another 10 miles away. I knew I wasn't going to make that, but maybe now I could hitch a ride. I walked south along the road for another 30 minutes, but not one car came by. Finally, I knew I was going to freeze to death. There was a light on at a ranch off the highway. I figured if they shoot me, it would be a mercy, so I went towards it. When I opened their gate, my hand stuck to the metal. I just ripped it off and stumbled to the front door. I knocked hard on the door. A surprised but kind-faced Indian named Star opened the door. To my relief, he didn't shoot me. In fact, he invited me in. Okay, last commercial break here. When I return, I'll tell you about how I got back to Boulder. Hello, ArchaeoHeads. I'm proud to announce that I have a new YouTube channel. It's called simply Archaeologist Ed Barnhart. It's like what I do here with the ArchaeoEd podcast, but now with videos and photos. My new channel will start with 4 posts a month. Once it gets rolling and questions start coming in, I'll start answering them in a 5th monthly post. You know how this works. I need lots of clicks to get the YouTube algorithm to notice me. And that's where you come in. If you're listening to this podcast, well, I'm sure you're going to like that stuff too. I'll put a link to it in my show notes, or just search YouTube for Archaeologist Ed Barnhart. My new channel will be buried in there somewhere. I'll look forward to your feedback. Please leave me some comments and questions. Star brought me in, sat me down on his couch, and gave me some coffee as I told him my tale. He agreed with the old man. I shouldn't have made it out of the reservation alive. After a while, he agreed to drive me into town and dropped me off at a motel. I starfished on a bed for a few hours, staring at the ceiling until the sun came up. Then the hotel owner kindly gave me a ride to the tiny Lander airport. My father had given me a credit card with strict orders only to use it in case of emergency, but I figured this qualified. So I bought a plane ticket to Denver and then took a bus back to Boulder. Just as I dragged into my house, the phone rang. It was Jane. She said, "Oh, Ed, I thought you were dead." I replied, "Jane, we're breaking up." She had eventually gone back to the trailer to find me gone. I guess they had sobered up some by then because they didn't kill her. She and the young nephew looked for me on the road and then in Lander's hospitals. They also alerted the police, but by then I was flying back to Colorado. When she returned the next day, I gave her camera back. She shared one more tidbit. The old man had just gotten out of a 20-year prison sentence for murder. Geez, that was a bad situation, and I'm lucky to have survived. It's definitely a cautionary tale, but what the lessons are, I'm not quite sure. Maybe don't be an idiot? As a postscript, what happened to Jane? It turned out that her dad was high up in the American military. A few years later, I got a call from the Pentagon asking character reference questions about Jane. I did not mention Wyoming. Through mutual friends, I heard she became a spy and spent decades as an operative in Eastern Europe. Then just a couple of years ago, she found me on Facebook. She had moved back to the States and was teaching in D.C. I was polite, but I didn't follow up at all. I love my wife, my life, and my family. I have no desire for any Jane-level chaos in my life. Okay, so that ends Season 6 of ArchaeoEd. As usual, I'm taking the summer off to travel. This summer, I'm headed to Wales, Greece, and Costa Rica. So the podcast will be on a hiatus until September, but I'll keep posting videos on my new YouTube channel, Archaeologist Ed Barnhart. That's my newest initiative to get my work out to the public and expand my audience. I hope you'll give it a look and subscribe. Finally, I want to give a heartfelt thanks to all of my Patreon supporters. Google, TikTok, and even YouTube are ripping creators off and policing their content. Patreon is just a straight-up support system. No commercial compromises or content judgment. It's really the lifeblood of my podcast, and I'm grateful to those who support me through it. Until September, this is ArchaeoEd signing off. You've been listening to ArchaeoEd, a podcast about the ancient civilizations of the Americas. If you like what you heard, please click like, subscribe, and tell your friends. If you didn't, don't do any of that stuff. ArchaeoEd is written, recorded, and produced by me, Ed Barnhart, and it's owned by my company, Ancient Explorations, LLC. ArchaeoEd is my intellectual property, all rights reserved. Copyright 2025.